Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I believe so far we've made some great strides in the path of reclaiming our joy. I am, and I'm hoping that you are too. So we're really grateful to be here. And we stand here being very confident believers that Black wellness is society's wellness. And for us at McGill, that's campus-wide wellness. And so we'll be sharing with you some systems that's been put in place to improve Black students' well-being at McGill University. We will skip this because we're on Ottawa land. Okay. And so we belong to a dedicated team of healthcare professionals providing physical and mental health support at McGill University. And we call it our team, but in support of this presentation, we do have Dr. Vera Romano, who is the director of the Students Wellness Hub where we do work. And we will, for the, what we would share with you, that we affectionately call it the Hub. So that's what I will be referring to during this presentation. Melissa Ann Cobbler, who is a social worker by profession and also a couple and family therapist. She's here with us in spirit. She couldn't make it. And Samantha Goldberg, who is our...
Hi, everybody. I can introduce myself. I'm Samantha Goldberg, and I'm the Associate Director of the local wellness advisors at the Student Wellness Hub. So that includes Angela's team. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But my background is in counseling psychology.
Okay. Myself, I am an advanced practice nurse with a specialty in mental health. And
I'm Sabine Neree, clinical psychologist, and I am a psychologist at McGill supporting Black students.
Yes, and I forgot to add, because that would come later, but I could do it now. A wellness advisor, we will talk more about that, and supporting Black students. Okay. So in our time with you today, we are hoping we will be introducing you to the Students Wellness Hub, and once again, the Hub, okay, and the Stepped Care 2.0 model that we are using. The Anti-Black Racism Working Group, this is a group that stemmed out of the McGill Anti-Black Racism Plan, and how the Hub is supporting Black and BIPOC students. And we are confident that at the end, you would all be very well informed about how the Hub is implementing the stepped care model, how this aligns with EDI-based initiatives that's been ongoing. And we would share with you proudly some programs and interventions that's been ongoing.
Thank you, Angela. I'm going to do that. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to speed through a little bit because I know we want to get to the meat of what Angela and Sabine are going to share of what we're actually doing right now to support our Black students. But just to give you a bit of the background of what the Student Wellness Hub is, so you can understand the context with which we're working. So the Student Wellness Hub at McGill was launched in the summer of 2019. At that time, or before that time, we were really siloed in all of our approaches to health and mental health. So we had one service that was mental health, and one service that was counseling, and one service that was health. And we recognized that we really needed to rethink how we were serving our students, because business as usual was really not working. And so, at that time, we were seeing, really a high demand for services, really, for example, we can look at what the National College Health Assessment was seeing also was 96% of McGill students were feeling overwhelmed, 61% felt hopeless, and 53 felt depressed to the point of having difficulty functioning. Like, this is what we were working with. And we had wait lists, lack of communication. So as we move through, which is the button I push? I'm sorry. Thank you. Thanks, guys. So what we did was we made a real change, and we brought all of our services together under one roof. This was really to make a holistic, whole campus approach. The big change was really to move away from these fragmented services. So it turned into what we call a hub and spoke model, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more, with basically a centralized service and then services also within different faculties and different services at that time. We wanted also, as one of our main goals, to move away from a reactive model to more of a preventative model. So we would see a lot of students coming to see us when it was too late, but really in crisis or really who needed urgent care. And we didn't have the capacity to deal with that. So really moving that dial, and also working really closely with our team members to be a collaborative team. So we didn't want bouncing back. We wanted our internal partners, but also our external partners across campus and in the community to feel like we had fluidity between ourselves, to decrease wait times and really ensure that our students were getting the care that they needed on a timely basis. So for those of you who might be, who might be familiar with stepped care, this is maybe a familiar visual for those of you who aren't. Stepped Care 2.0 is a framework that we worked strongly with to create our what we call collaborative care model. The idea is that in order to do this, we have many options in order to meet different folks where they are in terms of what they need for care. So if we look at this, and I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but you can see that, this is an example of some of the options that we have at the Wellness Hub, and sort of on the axis going upwards, we see that the stakeholder investment goes up as the steps go up. And that also, as we get higher in the steps, the service user autonomy goes down. And so, there is a time and a place for each of these services. And we wanted to make sure that we have many resources for students to be able to access the ones that they both need and the ones that they are ready to engage with. So one thing I just want to point out with all of our services that we can move towards, this is the menu of services. So we have many, many services, but with all of these services, there is no gatekeeping. The only step that has a step before it is psychiatry. So where you need to meet with a GP in order to see a psychiatrist. But with all of the other services, students are welcome to go where they feel most comfortable, with whom they feel most comfortable, and whatever suits their needs, their readiness to engage at that time. So the menu of options that we have now and that we had when the hub opened were sort of your more standard clinical services. We have counselors, we have dietitians, nurses, doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, sexologists. We have a whole health promotion arm of the hub, which does workshops. We do things like animal therapy to invite students in, also just different kinds of outreach and telehealth and self-help. And we also have some resources that we sort of invented as we opened the hub. And one of those that I want to really highlight is our team, Angela and my team, which I'm really proud of, you can turn to. And they're called the Local Wellness Advisors. And I'm focusing on this now because this is the role of Angela and our colleague Melissa, who are the wellness advisors for serving Black and BIPOC students. But when we opened the hub, this role didn't exist yet. We started off by creating this role, who were basically the spokes in the hub and spoke model. So if you can picture sort of like an octopus, the tentacles of their reach into the campus. So we didn't want to hide out in one place anymore and have everybody come to us. We really wanted to have a reach through the campus so it was easier for students to access. And so these mental health professionals are embedded within each faculty, but they're a little different than regular counselors that are engaged in faculty in that they spend most of their time doing outreach work. And so that is really like getting into the classrooms, talking to people about prevention, about awareness, and then they spend 30% of their time also doing one-on-one wellness advising. So we see this role really as a bridge between health promotion and clinical services. And when we started the hub, we had them in faculties and we had them in different services, so international students, athletics, and residences. But we didn't have any community-based, and we're going to talk about how that transition happened. And then the last thing I just want to say about the framework so that you can understand, which really lent itself well, was that the step care in practice is built on the principles that guides it. And so these are just some of the principles, but I highlighted in orange the ones that really lent itself well to working with, EDI, and eventually, so we have the initiative working with Black students. We also have an initiative working with 2S LGBTQIA, but obviously today we're focusing on our Black students. But all of these principles really are the basis of being able to do that work. Because they are respectful. So understanding that social justice drives effective care transformation and is in an intervention in and of itself. And we'll come back to that a little later. Multiple and diverse care options are required, as one approach will not work for everyone. All individuals and communities have strength and capacity. Professionals do not carry all the wisdom. People often know what is best for them. An effective care system ensures people have access to care when and where it is needed. So I'm going to leave you with that as I pass it to Sabine, who's going to talk a little bit more about the program itself.
Thank you, Sam. So how are we going to connect the Step Care 2 model to EDI initiatives? So the Anti-Black Racism Working Group at McGill University came together in 2020 in the wake of the racial reckoning that was the murder of George Floyd. So this initiative is led by Angela Campbell, was led the Associate Provost for Equity and Academic Policies. The mandate was to develop an EDI strategic plan for students for the aim of promoting wellness, success, support, especially for underrepresented groups, and to raise student awareness about discrimination, oppression, and their effects. So the EDI strategic plan has a detailed short, medium, and long-term goals that McGill-wide, school-wide, at all aspects and of the university. So fostering EDI knowledge and practice among faculty, staff, clinicians, hiring additional Black staff, creating and offering specialized programming, carrying out Black student needs assessment, creating a wellness advisor role for BIPOC students. So the Student Wellness Hub collaborative care model needs to evolve to address all, those issues of EDI concerns. So the health needs of Black and BIPOC students through culturally appropriate on and off campus resources that regarded their lives, experience, and encounters with oppression. So as we were saying, we are 3 staff who are supporting the EDI initiative at McGill. Mel, who was not able to come today, she's a wellness advisor for BIPOC students. She was the first hire of the EDI strategic plan in January 2021. Angela, the wellness advisor for Black students, joined the team in March 2023, and me, the counselor, I joined in March 2024. So this is the meat, all the programs and intervention. What do we do on site at McGill University? So On top of one-to-one support that Elwas, Angela, and me do, we have a whole various initiatives that we do, and I can highlight a few that are very important. BIPOC support group for medical students, for example. They are supporting Black student groups in many faculties, education, law, nursing. There's a Black Student Network events. Pick Your Path is a very interesting mentoring program where we go into Black high school. We connect with Black high school students who wish to attend McGill University. And there's another lovely event is a Black grads. We have graduation for Black students. It's a beautiful way to get the community together and celebrate success at the end of the academic year. Outreach activities are very key to our programming. We have our most important, strongest partner is a Black student liaison affaire. His name is Antoine, if you hear him. So he's like a connector. He's the person in the community who knows the students, and he links them to us, to the Wellness Hub. He's a source of referrals as well, and a lot of information of resources available on campus and off campus for Black students. Moving the dial for the Wellness Hub. How do we do this work? Angela, Mel, and I. This is a lot of work. I was looking at this, I don't know how many students, 35,000 more students at McGill. I believe it's around 4% of Black students. It's a lot of work, right? But we have support. So we had specialized consultation with Kafui Sawyers. She's a trauma consultant. So we meet weekly, individually. Angela, I meet weekly, me and Mel, just to get support, to fill our cup. That reminds me of what Prof. Jude said, healing circles. I think it's we have healing consultations. The leadership team that includes Sam and Vera also have consultation with a counselor, for her name, Miss Jillian. So they have like consultation with, to stay within the EDI strategic plan. Moving even beyond us, the Wellness Hub is offering an EDI-focused trainings for the whole hub. All staff, all service providers, as includes psychiatrists, nutritionists, nurse, the frontline staff who mans the phone lines. The counselors and the local wellness advisor have specific training. There's one that we are doing right now, Introduction to Working with Black Students. It's a 6-hour training, I believe. We're going to do the work. It's just to learn to interact with Black students and acquire cultural competency, as well as EDI case consultation for counselors. I really enjoy these consultations where my colleagues, all the counselors and clinicians learn cultural competency, learn how to inquire about microaggression, racism, discrimination, or learn to name racial discordance between the students and the therapist, the counselor, if the counselor is not Black. So these are the initiatives we're doing. Next slide. Visioning the world forward. I'm going to let Angela.
Thank you, Sabine. So we are very grateful for how far we've come. Okay, and so moving forward, what does the vision look like? And the hub is aiming to encourage and maintain these partnerships with the Anti-Black Racism Working Group, and then various stakeholders who have supported us up to date, right? And even more that we are hoping to engage with. And we are all committed to this anti-racism, and it is from a genuine, we are really authentic about this, and to also have a decolonized lens. And so what does this look like? And it is to continue with what we are already doing, that one-on-one support meetings for us, the counselor and the wellness advisors supporting Black students, having support that is really key for us with the work that we do, and then building the capacity of leadership and then the various faculties that we engage with, the Black and BIPOC students, to ensure that they do flourish during the academic journey at McGill. We're creating and promoting delivering workshops and programs that will really promote their self-esteem and the value of Black, Indigenous, and racialized people in their communities at McGill.
So just really quickly, some feedback that we're getting. So we are 2 years into having Angela, not quite a year, 6 months into having Sabine on the team, and for 3 years into having Melissa as the BIPOC counselor. Sorry, BIPOC local wellness advisor. But we're seeing some change. So I don't have any data like numbers for you right now, but we do have anecdotal evidence, and we use this conference actually as a good, kick in the pants to try to, see how we're doing. Some of the feedback that we're getting. So Sabine was mentioning that one of our closest partners is called the Black Student Affairs Liaison, and his role was implemented when the anti-Black racism plan was put in place. And his job is really to connect with the Black student body and staff at McGill as well, to improve the experience of these folks at McGill, to connect these folks, and to be able to, get the feedback, but also use the feedback. And so Angela and Sabine and Melissa sit on this anti-Black racism working group and are able to bring back some of the feedback that they have, whether positive or constructive, as to how we can do better at McGill from the voices of our students. But I have a lot of contact with Antoine. And so from his perspective, he is finding that when people are coming into his office, he's hearing that students are finding the care to be more accessible. For me, that feels like a win. And I'm going to pass it to Angela and Sabine, who have more direct contact with the students, to share what some of their experiences have been.
Yes, I saw a student who was amazed. She told me, this is the first time I have really felt seen by a counselor. I was able to validate her sense of being othered, dehumanized in her small community of friends and co-workers. And it really touched me, and she felt really touched, and she said, I love you. It's very touching, and I really appreciate that my presence can make a difference for these students.
And so to build upon that sense of belonging that Sabine has just shared, I've had also a student who in a session left, and we were all hoping that things would really go well, that it was a heavy session. And then just a couple of hours later, I see that they sent an email expressing their gratitude. And in that email, they felt empowered and free to express their needs. And the greatest thing of all is that beyond those sessions, I had a couple with him, but then they moved further into feeling self-advocacy. When they saw me, they had an experience where they didn't feel heard in a session, and they had received a diagnosis and they were not in agreement, so they were not adhering to treatment, the treatment regimen. But then from that session, now they felt empowered, and they were consulting with one of the healthcare professionals at the HAB, as we shared the stepped care model, seeing a doctor, a general practitioner, and then feeling empowered to move on to see a psychiatrist and to start the whole process. But this time they had a say in it. Okay. So these are some of the things that are ongoing for us, and I'll pass on to Sarah, because with all that, we have had lessons that we
always have lessons that are learned. And I guess the main takeaway for us here is that if this can be helpful for anyone in terms of implementation of this kind of system elsewhere, this is what we hope to share with you. So for us, some of the key lessons that were learned were that having a campus or community liaisons, this has been huge. So, sitting and waiting for people to come to you, does not work super well. When we started, it really was get out into the community from the get-go. But we have been really blessed to have this person who is connected, and connected to the university as a whole, and have that network there. I do not believe that we would be as successful if we didn't have that network already in place that was moving us forward. So, having that network in place, having a person who is already connected to the community has been very, very helpful. Added specialized supports needed for the staff. So I can say, unfortunately, we learned that the hard way. And that when we started, we did not have those specialized supports. And it was from feedback from staff saying, like, look, this is hard. This is hard work. And hearing that and recognizing that we needed to have that specialized support. I'm a manager. I am clearly not Black. I clearly do not understand the nuance of what it is like to be Black as much as I can come to a conference and appreciate it is a different thing. And so we were able to get that specialized support. And in fact, it was because I attended this conference 2 years ago that we met Kafui, and we're able to put that in place. And it's been really, really wonderful for both us and I think for the staff. In addition to that, I think not just having the supports for the service providers, but also having a team of folks. And so not just having one person doing this work, having two, having three, having it be the work of a team. And then beyond that, having us move the dial for the whole team so that eventually we know we're starting. And we were when Dr. Williams was talking about, sort of that having one professional who was Black, how that helped build trust within the community. And then people felt freer to come. We are hoping that will happen, that we have these representatives. We are hiring more Black folks on our general team too, and hoping that it will spread so that folks feel more comfortable to come and see anyone at the hub, and that we are training up our whole staff to be able to be culturally competent dealing with Black folks. Also recognizing that the things that people were bringing to our Black student support, our local wellness advisors, before we had Sabine, they were bringing trauma. And our local wellness advisors their job is not meant to be therapy, but we would have Black students coming into their office needing support. And in the community, we know that there are not a ton of Black therapists. And when there are Black therapists, they often have a waiting list. And so we would have our wellness advisors with students sitting there who needed support, and we didn't have anywhere to send them. So we figured out a way, and we got Sabine. So we have, and so building when the needs are coming to us, building those resources that we need to support our students so that we have somewhere to send them to get the support that they need. That has also been really important. And then just the last thing, this is really a me thing, is patience when hiring, and that we recognize that we need, and I'm so happy to hear that that there are efforts amongst everyone to build more capacity within the mental health world, because it's been really challenging to find folks to do this work. Understandably so, it is not easy work. But when the need is real, we can feel that pressure to hire somebody, but it is not helpful to either students or the staff doing the work if they are not fully, competent to do that work. It's a lot to hold. So, that has been just that it is not a fast snap your finger. It has taken time, but I am super happy to where we are, where we have come. And I'm happy to discuss if anybody else has anything they want to talk about. And I think that's it. We did it. So if anybody has any questions, if we have any time. I'm happy.
You have 10 minutes for questions.
Oh, well, gain time, right? Because there are only 3 sessions. Yeah.
I don't know if, am I projecting my voice well? I can speak loud. Yes. So, yes, I have a question about funding. I think that I'm actually a part of a community-based organization here, and we're doing that, but on the high school level. And we're going into schools, doing workshops, and it's specifically for resilience, and we're bringing in employment options for them, as well as educating them, just introducing students to these options and raising their awareness in terms of identity and empowering them that way. And so we need funding to do that. We need to hire people, et cetera. So I'm just wondering, what is it? Have you had any challenges as a university-based organization where it comes to hiring more people, staff who are qualified for this work? And even the student, the connector, I'm calling them an ambassador. And so that's kind of what I'm hearing. So even for that student, are they being paid?
I mean, yes. So I think finding funding anywhere is challenging. And at the beginning, we had funding for one person to do all of this work, right? We started off with one wellness advisor serving the BIPOC community, not just Black students, right? So the Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So this is a huge, especially, during the pandemic, these were folks that were, disproportionately suffering, right? So this was a huge, but I think we were very lucky, not lucky, I don't know. But, the quote from George Floyd's daughter that we all heard before, that, her daddy made a difference, right? Because that blew up to the point where it made this a priority. And we are lucky enough that this priority was taken by McGill, and that funding was secured and made a priority, so that when we had the opportunity, we were able to hire another local wellness advisor specifically focusing on Black students. And then to also, figure things out to be able to hire Sabine. But to make Sabine's role, actually, we changed a regular counselor position to be that. So we didn't get extra. So we've had to be creative a little bit too about how we've allocated our funds internally and how we could prioritize, recognizing that this is a priority. And I feel grateful that we've had the ears that are listening on our administration, where that isn't always the case. But finding funding is always really challenging. So I guess I'm going to think about your answer.
Produce data. You had to produce data for this need, right? You will say this is necessary. You really had a case. You had a case.
We didn't have. We had the data showing that the BIPOC, like to have the BIPOC, that was part of the original plan. To have the BIPOC local wellness advisor. And then once that happened, we had the data that her services were being used, and that folks wanted to have her services, that she was busy doing outreach, that she was working. And so there was a case to be made to have another local wellness advisor. And that, I think there was also, it wasn't so much data that was producing that there was a need specifically for Black students, because there wasn't enough time to focus on that particular need. So in the end, the data was the data that we had produced internally. And we had already the administration that was on board. But trying to convince people who are not already convinced, I think that is a whole other, what we need to do is bring them all to this conference. And then, we've been talking amongst ourselves, how do we get more people to join and hear, this messaging, and how do we share that messaging that the need is real? In order to get that funding. Yeah.
Great presentation. I saw the list of programs that you had available for students. I think one was BIPOC medical students, or students that are looking to go into medical school, graduate network. Have you guys considered, looking at, or I'm not aware of the racial diversity within the clinical psychology program for faculty and for students? And, knowing that they only represent less than 1% in Canada, have you guys looked at creating something to try to funnel in some of those undergraduate students into clinical psychology programs? Or can you speak to like maybe the diversity that's already there?
I mean, this is a great idea. And these are some of the ideas that we get when we're coming here too, and looking what University of Ottawa is doing, that the chair of psychology was talking about yesterday. Like, these are really important practices. And I think, unfortunately, I don't have the power to implement them, but I think we have the right ears of the people to potentially implement them. And when I'm talking about there being a scarcity of folks to come in and do this work in our clinic, it starts somewhere. It starts by opening doors and creating opportunities so that those folks can get in the door, right? It's not that it is hard, and it's not that we aren't trying to find those folks. So yes, in short, those are the kinds of messaging that we hope to bring back and see if we can do things like that at McGill too. Any other questions? Are we done? Oh, can you shout?
Yeah, I can. Very much so. Whereas I would like to give profound congratulations to the very work that has been done, some pieces of the narrative still disturbs me from the perspective that in lieu of the question asked here, that we have to constantly fight to get funding for an area that is so intentional. To me, it's problematic in nature, because if it is important, we will walk the walk and we'll talk the talk. So for a group that is already facing oppression in a system that is very Eurocentric and colonized, in a place where whiteness and pervasiveness of those populate in a way that created dissonance. And I'm a clinician, so I speak the language that is going to get us into that space. Sitting here, I felt so much dissonance, because I'm hearing that, yes, we have these Black individuals, yes, we have these Indigenous individuals, yes, we have the people of color, and on one side of the anger, we have to fight to get something to represent them. And this is not a label that is directed to you, but it's a universal problem that is constantly that is constantly bringing us into places like those where we have to address the need around that. So I want, when we go back, that in maybe the next 5 years, when we begin to have that kind of a narrative, we will not see it as though we have done so much, as though it has been a laborious task. It should be so organic, because the very data tells us that in order to address culturally responsive, culturally adaptive, and culturally relevant programmatic areas, particularly around mental health, around comorbidity, and even wellness, must be done by people that look like me, talk like me, and have the lived experience like me. And that is the data that speaks. It's called lived experience. Secondly, and in a university like that, I would also like to challenge the narrative that we decide, because it is a problematic term when we begin to say BIPOC. I know we use it loosely, but there's no way we could put the experiences of the Black community and the Indigenous community and make one soup. That concussion ain't gonna taste good. So we have to really fix that, because it's problematic. And the third piece that we want to be able to look at is that it's so welcoming to see a lot of the services that you have itemized in the menu. But I want to push this a bit further to say that it is one person, and it's good that a person, but that sounds like, the kind of DEI hire that we talk about and we see. And it's good, but we need to even do better. I'm hoping that this person has the clout, the autonomy, and the ability to create the change that is needed in environments like these. Because as we look at thematic areas, it's very white, The approaches are not Afrocentric, and it is not decolonized. And so placing students who are coming from the very environment that you have talked about, which is the Black, the Indigenous, and the people of color, and they do not have a very decolonizing approach that they can begin to do bilateral stimulation, EMDR in color. They can begin to do narrative therapy. They can begin to do tree of life, the Ubuntu piece that is so relevant. It will tell me that the very intervention that they're getting is still colonized in a white environment, and it is not culturally responsive. So I'm challenging you today that at the next time we come back, we can begin to have various modalities that say to us that when we're addressing the wellness piece, I don't want to be able to go by a doctor. One of the powerful pieces is recreational therapy. Take me back to the Caribbean. The CISN and Son does something for me. You see, take me back to Africa where I can get the fufu and the jollof rice. The food alone tells you, like them I see it and I smell it, I better. Because it does something for me. Rather than tell me about mindfulness, I don't want the mindfulness, which in itself, I want good food and be around people with the same healing circle that is transformative and that is relevant to the people. And that's why I think this sort of education and the awareness around those kind of Afrocentric piece begins to tell us that, yes, I will congratulate you for the start, because we must start some way, but the journey is forever evolving and there's a lot more. And I can say to you, there are people who are doing the work already that is going to be able to be in a space that can share with you. When we look at the South African piece, for example, when a client comes to me and I talk about narrative therapy and I use the tree of life and I bring in all of the different aspects, and these are pieces that we are training that can go in terms of debriefing groups and couples and so forth that are proven, evidence-based, empirical to help people within the Black and racialized community that are really seeking a culturally responsive piece. So I salute you on the efforts done, but I look forward to your next iteration where I can hear some of these recommendations of not just one, but several pieces that are intentional.
I like that challenge. I will accept that challenge. Absolutely. I am pleased to say that we are hiring also an Indigenous local wellness advisor to be separate. And that, and that we do have quite a few more with more time. Maybe we'll talk after, but I think our whole team likes to hear about ideas that we can implement because, we grow. So 2 years from now, we'll have more to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to add something to the question that you asked, and maybe that could be helpful. I'm thinking maybe you have to you target a funding source. You knock on a door and then maybe they're saying they're not sure. They're sure, like they're not sure how they're going to help you, right? And then maybe you get a student, one of the high schoolers that you've helped, that your program has been very impactful in their life, to volunteer. Then you get data, then you get proof. How about that?
I'm working on that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. We need some testimonials to be able to say, how this has been beneficial for them. But, because they are high school students, there's a lot of limitations around that. And, they're underage. So things like that, we have to get around all those logistics. But definitely, that's why I asked about the case that you had. And like you're saying, gentlemen, I'm my brother, I really appreciate what you're saying, because it's like we're constantly having to show and prove and demonstrate a need, which can be exhausting and redundant. So it is difficult, but I understand the necessity to get somewhere where we have to think of where we're going. So that's the mindset that I have to get over that hurdle for now.
And the research tells, because as many of you may know, you've got to build a business case, and the business case has been built in the region of Peel, where the organization and the very first ever Black Health and Social Services Hub would be built in Canada for the Black population. And it's a combination of 3 different services, which is going to be primary health care. So you'll be seen by a Black doctor. You can understand it, and you're not going to go there and like we do now and say I have one complaint. You could tell the doctor here, there, everywhere, and begin to, because this is how the community operates. So there's the primary health care. Then there is the mental health and addiction, comorbidity, concurrent disorder pieces, and then there's social services. And the government, because of the lobbying that's happened in Peel, the Ontario government just gave 25 million for 3 years. Wow. So you've got to be able to sort of build a case, demonstrate, and it didn't come easy. It took a lot of work, and so the 3 organizations that is leading that process, one happens to be where I am located. We have built it, we have heard it, we have continued to make the noise, and in that space, when you enter there, are people from the Black health and social services background and identity that are providing these kinds of culturally responsive, culturally adaptive, culturally conscious, and culturally relevant services. So when you get in there, you can see people that talk like you, walk like you, and it's going to be the first of its kind, which is a test case for the rest of the province as we move forward. It's into its 2nd year. You will see primarily, and you could go if you bbhsupappeal.ca, and you can see some of the pieces as it begins to look forward to what that look like. And we're hoping that it be a model that can be adapted in so many ways for others, university, community, grassroots, that can really be able to pull into those services and create a replica for the Black African Caribbean community.
Awesome, thank you.
The Black Health and Social Services Appeal.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Student Wellness Hub of McGill. Okay. And thank you for all your questions.